here in this chapter, wisdom is seen outside a city, crying into the community and saying, is anybody listening? Okay? She's not actually inside the city just happening to stand at these gates, but she's actually outside saying, will you listen and let me in? So Proverbs 1, starting in verse 20, wisdom cries aloud in the street. In the markets, she raises her voice. At the head of the noisy street, she cries out. At the entrance of the city gates, she speaks. How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? Now, that word simple actually means naive, kind of ignorant, not paying attention. She's saying, how long are you going to be naive and ignorant? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing and fools hate knowledge? Now, to me, this sounds a little bit like what our nation is going through. There's a lot of scoffing. There's a lot of people that don't even want to know the truth. But then here's what she says. If you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. Here is wisdom. God himself is all wisdom. He's saying, you want an outpouring of the Spirit? You want me to pour out your spirit, my spirit to you? Listen to my reproof. Are you listening to my reproof? If you do, I'll pour it out. Now, I'd never thought about that being accessing an outpouring of God's Spirit. Well, what does reproof mean? It means correction, discipline, chastisement. There's even punishment. Oh, now that doesn't sound like a good God, does it? What kind of father do we have? Remember in Hebrews, God says, I discipline those I love. God's discipline is always so that we become more and more like him. Because he knows that's the only way that we're going to be happy and fulfilled is to be more and more like him. And so sometimes as a loving dad, he'll correct us and he'll discipline us. And again, this is hard if you did not grow up with a loving dad. If you don't have a picture of a good dad, it's going to take a little bit longer to have your mind renewed according to the truth of our Heavenly Father, that he loves his sons and daughters, and he wants us to grow up and to mature. And so this is the charge that we have. Are you able to listen to my reproof? Or are we rebelling? Do we not like to listen to correction? How many of you love to listen to correction? Yeah, right. Okay. The few brave souls. Yeah, we just love being disciplined, don't we? We love to be rebuked. I mean, can you think of the last time you were rebuked? We don't like that. You know, it would be nice if everything that I really needed to hear, I would just get directly from God himself. I mean, you know, in my quiet time, because I pray so much and I read so much, of course he's going to tell me. And, I mean, how many of you have ever said to someone, you know, who's been trying to tell you something, and you say, if God tells me that, then I'll listen. Well, what's that saying? I'm not going to listen to you or anybody else. I have to hear it first from him. Well, I don't know about you, but for me, I find that there's times where the Lord, it's like he's standing up there like this. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell him to tell you. And it's usually the person that bugs you the most. Many times your spouse. Or your best friend. Or someone who really knows you, by the way. And here's the problem. See, we're all human, and sometimes it might not come out the best way. It may not come at the best time. They may end up adding some of their own stuff to it. But see, here's what God is saying. Can you still perceive my wisdom in that? Can you still see that that's me? Or are you so offended, and like I can't hear that you shut it off? This is what wisdom is saying. It would be wonderful if every rebuke that we needed to hear would come through a perfectly packaged individual that just says it at the right time, in the right way. Yeah, that's not life. But this is the challenge, you know, and as a church, we're not good at this. Let's just be honest. We're not good at giving it, and we're not good at receiving it. But this is the challenge. If we want to grow in discernment of the Spirit, this is where it starts. You want to grow in discernment? Can you learn to hear from others feedback and say, okay, I don't like that part, and I don't know about this, but you know what? That part right there, you're right. It's true. You know, Bobby and I, we purpose to do that in our communication. And we're at the point where I purpose to, even when I don't like some things, I've found that even if I go back and I say, you know, I really didn't like that, but you were right in that one part that you said. Something happens in the spirit when I do that. It's like there's a peace and there's a blessing. And just because I've acknowledged it, it's like something comes in and there's just a grace to go higher, to go further. There's more trust established. I mean, it's amazing how it works. And God knows that. We practice this by listening and asking for feedback. So this is the challenge. And maybe this could even be an experiment. Because I really believe that there is a very practical way that we could deal with the offense in church, amongst the church as a whole. You know, we talk about everyone gets so offended, you know, and nobody is listening anymore. We can actually take initiative in changing that, and this is how. Rather than waiting for someone to come and tell you what you need to hear, you take the first step and you ask them. You start asking for feedback from people that know you the most. It could be as simple as, give me one positive and one negative. Or give me one, can you tell me something that you see in my life that really blesses you, that you really see God in and through my life? You know, I would appreciate knowing that. Just encourage me. Is there something that really stands out? And thank them for whatever it is they say. And then ask, is there something in my life that doesn't reflect Christ, that maybe you've seen me do or something I've said that I need to work on, that maybe doesn't come out? Can you give me some feedback? That's not easy to do because you don't know what they're going to say. But I'm convinced that if we could begin to do that, amazing things would happen. You know, we are blessed with our overseer, Ron Meyer from Dove. Whenever he comes and visits us and always spends time with Bobby and I, at the end of our time together, he always asks these questions. He says, now tell me, give me some feedback. How am I doing as a leader? Is there anything I'm saying or doing that I need to change or that would, you know, that you think could be improved? I mean, when someone comes to you with that kind of heart, do you really want to jump on them then? No. I'm continually blessed by his humility and the fact that here's an apostolic leader of hundreds of churches coming and saying, you know, help me out. Tell me, is there anything I could do better? That's what it is to humble yourself before one another.